belong to us, YouTube. You will be like us, everyone. And please welcome back my regular guest. And in fact, Koki, you've not been around for a couple of weeks. Did you have a good Christmas, good New Year?
Yes, all went well. Encountered the Cybermen, purged of all human emotion except for species-related bigotry.
How's that?
No, I'll go into it later. Just basically, never mind.
Okay. And you, James, 1978?
Hello there, this is James Uscroft, UJames 1978, and you could say that it had a complete metal breakdown. Oh! What?
That was awful.
I want to say Jamie's face in that moment, kind of my face right now.
But that's the whole point. One of those beautiful little comedy segments slipped in.
And there's a joke about comparing Victoria's skirt with Jamie's skirt.
Yes. But that's a segment in itself.
Anyway, tonight we are discussing The Tomb of the Cybermen, written by Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis, directed by Maurice Barry. On the planet Telos, an expedition uncovers a hidden door in a mountain. The TARDIS lands, and the expedition are joined by the Doctor, Jamie and Victoria. Parry, the expedition's leader, explains that they are here to find the remains of the Cybermen, who apparently died out centuries ago. The expedition is funded by Kaftan, who is accompanied by her servant Toberman and her colleague Klieg. The doors are electrified, but the party manages to enter at the cost of one life. They find a control panel and a large, sealed hatch. A discovered gem, this was the first 60s Cyberman story I ever saw. Brilliant set, wonderfully eerie atmosphere, well-drawn and colourful characters, and some of the best cliffhangers in the show's history, and some of Patrick Troughton's most shining moments in the role. It also takes place on one of the best realised weird alien worlds, and although there are things about the serial that seem very old-fashioned, most of these, like the music, only add to the charm. Okay, fun facts are the earliest complete Troughton serial, The Tomb of the Cybermen, was discovered in Hong Kong in 1992, screened at the British Film Institute, and rushed out on VHS release with an introduction by director Maurice Barry. It is the only missing serial to be found in its entirety apart from The Enemy of the World. Michael Kilgareth, the actor who played the cyber controller, convinced producer Innes Cloyd to increase his pay, as although he didn't voice the character, he argued that he still needed to learn all the lines for the opening and closing of the mouth. Just as well only the cyber controller spoke, or they'd have had to have paid all the Cybermen for speaking roles, as well as paying the voice artist. Actually, since I wrote that, I noticed there is one bit where there's like a cyber lieutenant or lieutenant who speaks as a very brief moment. So technically, one other Cyberman does speak. Deborah Watling, who played Victoria Waterfield, was so shy in the early days she ate her own sandwich alone, and it took weeks to persuade her to eat with the rest of the cast, who were close. The scene where the Doctor comforts the grieving Victoria wasn't in the script, but improvised by the actors in rehearsal. For years after this was broadcast, people swore that the cliffhanger to Part 1 really did show a real Cyberman walking out, and that the Beeb cheated in the recap by wheeling out a mannequin. They may have felt a bit stupid when they finally saw it again, but it is interesting how the mind works. And, well, bit of a mouthful this week. So, anyway, Koki, as usual, you've just seen Tomb of the Cybermen for the first time. Your opinion?
Well, I really, really like classic Who Cybermen. There's just something about them that they're just so much more appealing. Not only to modern Cybermen, but I like them a lot better Daleks or, classic or modern. It's just like this whole eerie nature. But I feel like this is sort of the missing link between, the Daleks that I'm more familiar with, the newer Daleks, and the older Daleks, the whole you will be like us. I guess that's not the first time that they said that, but I don't know. The whole idea of making this homogenous world, I guess, of Cybermen, it still did it in classic Who style. It's very eerie, but I guess it also reminded me of how the Cybermen I'm more familiar with. Either way, I love these Cybermen. I didn't get to speak about Kennel, but he's basically in this episode too, uh, which is, uh, yeah, Toberman. I,
We feel your pain.
you know, it's just he instead of being mute, he barely spoke, and he spoke in like Hulk smash kind of speak. But what I was saying earlier on is just I find the fact that he turned after being changed into a Cyberman was rather odd because the entire basis for his siding with the humans is you're not a Cyberman, you're one of us. And he's like, they're evil. And yeah, you know, I just find it odd that he would feel any sort of kinship to humans after being altered. And of course, he sacrificed for the greater good because what else are characters like that for, really?
Yeah.
Especially after he was converted. Even if he turns, it's pretty implicit that he's been corrupted, and he's going to be done away with. The intrigue, I don't know. I usually like this sort of backturning, but it just struck me as comically silly in this. That one is like secretly trying to conquer the world or rule the universe. It reminds me of that the nothing in the world can stop me now. He wants to remake the world by using the Cybermen. Oh, I'm gonna pull a gun on them, and then they'll do everything I say. And the fact that I'm making them build an army will never backfire. This is so legit. I have a gun. Really? You think that they'll be totally loyal and cooperative and not turn on you because you can pull a gun on them? I don't know.
Another one of those characters. It's Maverick Chen. He's a cross between Maverick Chen and Professor Zaroff.
I know.
Yeah, I like Maverick Chen.
I say it every week, but the last 50 evil, stupid people who tried to strike a deal or a bargain with the Daleks or the Cybermen may have been exterminated or otherwise died horribly, but their problem was that they weren't evil and stupid enough.
But yeah, the whole business with the gun was a bit weird because the Cyber Controller was immune to the gun, but the other Cybermen weren't. If you can build a Cyberman that's immune to that gun, build them all to be immune to that gun.
But that's the basic point with the Amazon type creatures in the episode with Hartnell and
Galaxy 4.
Galaxy 4, thank you. There's got to be, if you're the leader, you have to be superior. The threat of rebellion is just as great as the threat of being attacked or killed by an enemy. That's the logic. But then, of course, there's the whole idea that the Cybermen don't have emotions, that they're entirely comfortable in their own role, that they wouldn't have ambition, etc. So
that's another point, actually. If I may interject, that something about these Cybermen, again, it's how they, like Daleks re-evolving and what have you, because these ones come across like they're drones and the Cyber Controller is a kind of command node.
Yes, that is the main aspect. That is the main aspect which really came through about the Cybermen for me in this episode, following on directly from the evil of the Daleks, in which all of the lower rank Daleks were just automatons. There were the black command Daleks, all of whom were loyal to the Emperor. In this one, it's the same basic principle of the Cyber Controller, because this is the first time we ever see this is the first time we ever have the idea of a leader like the Borg Queen. And as if the idea is kill the leader and thus achieve the goal, but no, it becomes a trope basically. I've always hated the Borg Queen for that very reason. It's this they're a collective. They all work with a collective will, but there has to be one person in charge. Why? Because there has to be the supervillain. Why? Because we're humans, and this is how we think. This is how we write fiction.
There's a point that I'm a little confused about. I thought the gun that didn't work on the leader was not the Cybermen experimental gun.
It was no. She was just the evil female kind of Arab witch that we'll get into. Kaftan. Yeah, she used an ordinary pistol.
And what killed all the others was the experimental Cyberman pistol. Yeah. I mean, because otherwise, how would you even threaten the leader with the gun if it didn't work on the leader?
Exactly.
But yeah, I should mention that female trope thing, femme fatale-ish. Not even, but yeah, that's another interesting.
I've seen if you watch a lot of kind of Aladdin-like movies from America in the 50s and 60s, even up until the early 70s, lots of films set in the Middle East with genies and flying carpets and all of that stuff, all of the mysterious East rubbish. The villain is sorry.
Jafar is the baddie in Aladdin.
But the point is that the villain in those, whilst the villain in Aladdin was male, the villain in these kind of 40s, 50s, 60s, early 70s kind of Middle East mysteries of the Persian Empire, mysteries of the Near East kind of films, was always that kind of Arab witch. She was always a witch or a sorceress or an enchantress, and she always behaved exactly like Kaftan. You know, that kind of dark, smoky, seductive, evil, femme fatale type who'll seduce you and then slit your throat while you sleep. That's where they got the character from, just like Kemal and Cybermen in this serial are the noble, savage archetype or trope.
Yes, this serial, while in so many ways excellent, yes, it probably does so far. I think this one, I think overall this one wins in terms of both gender and racial tropes.
Oh yes, wins in the most ironic sense of the term.
Yeah, so at least we can assure Koki that it's never as bad as that again.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, the way Vicky was treated, or not Vicky, Victoria, and they called her Vic, that confused, what?
I was going to say, there's something, if we're going to talk about sexism, what bothers me about Victoria is the way that the characters treat her. When these are writers writing in the 60s, setting it it's 500 years since we last saw the Cybermen, so many centuries in the future. And they haven't thought that maybe our kind of 60s sexism, well, they wouldn't have called it sexism, but they didn't actually think that maybe attitudes would change. But at least Victoria and Jamie are written very well in that they always stay true to being from the eras that they're from.
Just the point about the writers, though, Alex. The number one rule, not number one rule, but the number one reality of writing science fiction. It's got nothing to do with alien species or the future or whatever else you're writing about. It's always about the present. You're always using the alien species or the alien planet or this future utopia or dystopia which you've created in your own mind to explore something, to explore some ethical or philosophical issue, to develop the characters, to tell a story. But if you were to transfer it into the modern world, it would still effectively be the same story. It's just that setting it on an alien planet or in the future or what have you gives you more leeway. It gives you a larger canvas on which to explore certain philosophical issues and what have you. But even then, even when you are trying to imagine a world completely different from your own, the fact that you are a straight white, in my case, a straight white man writing in the 21st century, or in their case, presumably straight white men writing in the 1960s, that is always going to inform, no matter how subtly, the way that the characters behave, the setting, etc. Just look at how in the 1960s they viewed a hyper-advanced technology, basically their own technology plus, and likewise today, it's impossible to tell what technology will be 100 years from now. But all science fiction written today still views it's the same basic idea of the computer, only slightly better.
So I have to say though, I watched the entire Back to the Future trilogy last night, and looking at Back to the Future 2.
It's 2015. We all have to dress like this now.
Yes. Actually, honestly, I think they pretty much nailed it. I'd say. But yeah. Anyway, did I have any other points? Well, actually, technically, we haven't gone over to you, James, yet. So, James, your general thoughts on this serial?
I do think that whilst this episode was staggeringly racist, even more racist than the portrayal of Kemal in The Evil of the Daleks, it was less sexist, because even though the other characters were being sexist towards Victoria, she did assert herself. She did actually do something. She had a beneficial role. For example, when I can never remember how to pronounce her name, Kaftan.
Yeah.
When Kaftan was holding her, the American captain of the rocket ship, and the navigator, first officer, whatever, at gunpoint, yes, she saved them by screaming, by making Kaftan think that the Cybermats were still attacking her. But the point is, she did save them. She did argue back. She did call people out on their sexism, etc. She did make the remark, "Oh, who'd be a woman?" Last week as well, when we were discussing The Evil of the Daleks with Ben, or after the podcast had finished, I can't remember if it was in the podcast or not, we talked about Victoria's skirt in this episode. They did discuss that, no matter how briefly. In the very beginning, when Victoria is being led into the TARDIS for the first time, the Doctor asks Jamie to help her find some more practical clothes. If she's going to be travelling with us, that long, flowing Victorian dress isn't going to be very practical. And when she's standing outside the tomb in her knee-length skirt, you mentioned before, Alex, she asks, "Don't you think this skirt is a bit short?" "Oh, of course not. I mean, look at Jamie's. Wait a... Oh, yes, of course." So, this is where instead of just being the kind of Snow White character who feeds the flying vermin outside the window, and should have little bunnies following her around wherever she goes, she is actually starting to develop a personality. But, oh my God, the racism. I've already discussed the Persian witch or sorceress or enchantress trope. We've already discussed Toberman as the noble sacrifice. Yes, that was a Freudian slip there. The noble savage who speaks only in Hulk smash terms. One point, Cocky, he hadn't been converted. He wasn't a Cyberman yet. He was under Cybermen control, like all of the scientists who contracted the disease on the moon base. So he was able. The point was that Kaftan's death had enraged him so much that he was able to break the cyber control. But yes, the racism there. It's quite funny, really, that Eric Klieg, the evil, stupid guy who tries to strike a deal with the Cybermen, he is an ethnic stereotype. He is the evil. He is the almost ridiculous supervillain, and he's the least racially bigoted. He's the least racist stereotype in the entire serial. No, we could have just had him as the evil, stupid villain, but no, we had to have the evil Middle Eastern sorceress and the noble savage slave as well, who sacrifices himself to save the white people. Oh, come on. But yes, the whole premise of the serial, the idea that the Cybermen had, they describe it as a trap, but a trap which is also a test. Like in the Dalek invasion of Earth, if you are intelligent enough to escape from a cell, that proves you have the intelligence to be turned into a Robo-Man. Of course, they hadn't come up with the concept of a Cyberman yet. But yes, if you are intelligent enough to get through the doors without being killed, to figure out the logic sequence to open the hatch and to thaw the Cybermen, then you are intelligent enough to be cyber-converted. I thought that worked very well.
Yeah.
That was very well done. Obviously, we've seen it before, but only just now do I realise that, yes, it was the same basic premise as the prison cell on the Dalek spaceship.
It's something that comes up in Classic Who, and I think it disappears throughout Classic Who, that Daleks and Cybermen alike only want to convert the more intelligent. I think the new series, it only appears in Asylum of the Daleks, because they do full conversions on intelligent people like Oswin, but the other people are kind of partial Daleks who are just kind of extra slaves, I suppose. Yeah.
But still, the point is, the point I was getting at there was that yes, it's the same basic premise, but it's different enough. It's enough of a variation on the theme that I'm only just realising it as I discuss it in this podcast. So the whole thing about the rocket ship having been sabotaged, which takes the American flight crew, the rocket ship crew, out of the picture for the second episode and into the third, because they're off repairing the rocket ship and will shoot anyone. And yes, they're so terrified now. The captain's so terrified of sabotage that he'll shoot anyone who comes near the ship. That works very well. That all makes perfect logical sense. Moffat, you've seen this how many times? You can recite it from memory. You still haven't learned anything. Sorry. But yes. Oh, and the first time we ever see the Cybermats, the introduction of the Cybermats.
Ah, yes, of course, Cybermats, which, Koki, if you're wondering where you've seen them before, there's one in the episode Closing Time, the Craig episode that has Cybermen in. It was a Mats episode, has one Cybermat. That's the only time they've been brought back. Yeah.
What about that Cybermat ending, though? He's like, so is that the end of the Cybermen? Oh, I don't like making predictions, except when you did it the very last episode.
Well, that's interesting, of course. This series doesn't have the... Oh, hello?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, James has dropped.
Okay.
Damn it.
So, yeah.
It might actually be offline, I'm not sure.
Looks like this is the final end for the Daleks.
Well, I was about to say, of course, this serial doesn't have that because the remaining Cybermen are just frozen, and the Cyber Controller might have been killed by the electrical doors closing, but a lot of other things didn't, so that could be still alive, which can explain how we see the Cybermen again, I suppose.
And they also didn't leave a sign explaining why they shouldn't open the door. They just electrified it.
Oh, yeah. Of course, one cliche that we don't have in this one is the and they're dead and gone once and for all, because it actually does make perfect sense for them to, come back again because they're frozen, not dead. The Cyber Controller might have been killed by the electrocution of the doors, but not necessarily. So it's kind of, this one is open-ended. It's not one of those, and they were gone for good ones. But anyway, sorry, James, continue.
Well, they deliberately set up. Oh.
But, no, I was actually going to say, who's to say that this one small colony of Cybermen on Telos are the only Cybermen left in the galaxy?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but we should also know it's deliberately set up for a sequel. There was a Cybernet escaping, and it was like a very dramatic dun dun dun. The Cybermen are returning. I thought it was pretty explicit. And yeah, they really should have just left a memo on the door, saying it's electrocuted because there's Cybermen in here and you don't want to mess with Cybermen. I don't know. Or, nuke the tomb or something. But okay, just electrocute it and leave it alone. What could possibly go wrong? It's not like they were able to enter an electrical room or anything. But a theme that was present in the first episode, I had forgotten about it, but now it's coming to mind. It's something that has occurred on a couple of occasions in Doctor Who. The idea that science can't go unchecked or curiosity can't go unchecked. And it's like, oh yes, we should learn more. And it's like, no, this is we're going a little too far. We need to control our curiosity or whatever. This kind of suspicion, I guess, of science, or in this case, the pursuit of knowledge, rather, because it's archaeology. It's kind of a recurring theme in Doctor Who, and it's present, early on in the serial.
Oh, yes, and this is kind of a tangent, but yes, after the 21st, now that the 21st century has arrived, and yes, it's basically the same. No, technology hasn't saved us. This is one of the main reasons for the rise of things like New Age beliefs, paganism, Wicca, the return to nature, the fact that you can buy organic salt, an idea that fails on every possible level. After all, the whole original concept of the Cybermen was conceived after in the wake of the first human heart transplant. So this idea of what if humans become machines? What if technology goes too far? What if science goes too far? What if our curiosity and our quest for knowledge goes too far? Was already present in the public mind. Now the fear of frankenfoods, the fear of GMOs, the fear of this, the fear that everything and its dog will give you cancer,
or that internet is destroying human interaction.
Exactly. It's all just part of the same idea of technology bad. Yes, let's go back to the old days when if we didn't die from drinking the water, we would have starved to death, frozen to death, or died of gangrene if we got so much as a simple cut.
Yes, it is a common science fiction thing. It's summed up with the phrase, there are things that There are some things that man is not meant to know.
Yes.
Which actually is turned on its head by the original version of The Fly.
Mm-hmm.
Because it looks like they're going down that route. And when the Vincent Price character, the uncle, is explaining what happened to the little boy, he explains it as, well, your dad was like an explorer in a strange land, and for a moment he was careless, and that moment cost him his life. And the little boy says, when I grow up, I'd like to be an explorer too. Roll credits. So they actually let science off the hook at the very end.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this whole conflict between the great science fiction visionaries and the great science fiction skeptics, for lack of a better term, has been raging for a long time. So that does sound like one of the few examples where they do try to balance it. They do try to let both sides be heard, to let you interpret the film however you wish to interpret it. But still, returning to two of the Cybermen. Oh my God, we're actually going to talk about the serial. So yes, that is one of the main things which I wish to discuss. The fact that, as Alex suggested and has mentioned in the past, the actor who plays the cyber controller was a leading actor of his day and demanded to be paid as much as the speaking actors. What? He's just standing there and opening and closing his mouth. Do you have any idea of the skill, the timing required to make it look as if you're having a conversation when you're in a solid metal helmet and can't see a thing, to know your cues, to know your lines, to know exactly when to open and close your mouth? And remember, you can't hear the lines either because of this massive metal helmet that's completely covering your head. You have to memorize everything. You have to rehearse everything. So, yes, full credit to the actor for giving such a believable and chilling performance. The voice artist himself also deserves a great deal of the credit. But to have human eye contact with a metal creature with no eyes, sterling achievement right there.
Yes, it's too easy to take these things for granted. It's Michael Kilgareth was the physical cyber controller, and I believe cyber voices were done by Peter Hawkins for this one. So okay, shout out.
It's like, again, going off on a tangent. It's like David Prowse, the Green Cross Code. David Prowse, the Green Cross Code Man from the 1970s, who was the body of Darth Vader. Everyone laughs. Oh, he's just some Somerset bumpkin. It was James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, who did all of the work. No, if it wasn't for his physical presence, if it wasn't for his timing, if it wasn't for the fact that he made you genuinely feel and be intimidated by the character of Darth Vader, then it would have been meaningless. But yes.
Yes, it's also very physically demanding work.
Absolutely.
Heavy costume, studio lights, a lot of physicality.
Yes, he went into the suit weighing, 250 pounds? He came out weighing 75.
There you go, yeah.
But that was hyperbole, obviously. Somebody in the comment section, some Star Wars nerd. What are you doing watching this podcast if you're not a Doctor Who nerd? It's possible to be both, you know. You can be bi fandom. Yes, poor bi fans being persecuted by both the Star Wars and the Doctor Who community. Sorry.
Probably its lack of visibility. I think. Okay, but reining this in, is it okay to go to a new topic?
Obviously, go ahead.
Okay. Well,
when I start making stupid jokes like that, that's your cue to.
Yeah. Basically, this serial marks two firsts. It's the first complete Troughton story, and it's Victoria's first outing as a companion. So I'm going to make this twofold. Opinions of Patrick Troughton now that we've seen him fully in action from start to finish, and opinions of Victoria as new companion. Koki.
He certainly seemed better in this one than the previous Patrick Troughton stuff. His mannerisms are a little weird. He rubs his hands a bit. That whole line where he's like humoring the bad guy to see, oh, okay, now I see you're completely mad was nice. He's funny, he's kooky. I mean that was clear even in the reconstructions. Though I can see like a lot of his little mannerisms sort of convey this sort of, crazy sort of scientist type guy, which is cool. As for Victoria, I don't know. I guess not too much of her character really drew my attention, other than the fact that she was constantly told, to stay out of the way and let the men do the work. I did like that she was annoyed by it, which is more to say, that more than a lot of the female companions. So, there's at least a bit of an exploration of sexism, even though, as you, James, pointed out, apparently it's going to exist for several centuries in the future, which is kind of sad. But yeah, it's especially interesting because someone from the Victorian era, complaining about sexism. But yeah,
this was around the time. This was after. She's from the 1780s, I believe. The 1880s.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's from the 1880s. This would have been decades after the formation of the first feminist societies, and it would be around the time of the suffragists and the suffragettes. So women saying, "Hang on a second, I can go down there as well." Oh, who'd be a woman? One of her lines. That is plausible, even though the men were still totally in charge, even though it was still assumed as a given that women were naturally weaker, that hysteria was a medical condition caused by the uterus, etc. But if you finished, Koki, shall I answer?
Yes, go on.
Yes, so regarding Troughton, my opinions of both Troughton and Pertwee, who you haven't seen yet, Cocky, can be summed up by William Hartnell's line in the future crossover serial The Three Doctors. So, you're my replacements, are you? A dandy and a clown. The fact that although Troughton was a serious actor for much of his life, he has such a wicked sense of humour that he loves to let slip in whenever possible, no matter how serious the serial, no matter how serious the scene that he's working in at the time. A lot of alliteration there. The line with which I opened this podcast, and you could say he had a complete mental breakdown. Badumtish. The actor who played Troughton in the anniversary docudrama An Adventure in Space and Time, again, his reply to the actor who played Hartnell at the end of the era, the end of the 10th planet, when Hartnell is retiring, I told them only one man in England could possibly succeed me. What? Wasn't he available?
Yeah.
So Troughton as this kind of clown doctor, as we see, able to take things seriously, but also able to see the lighter side of things. Oh yes, and when Jamie, and Victoria arrive entirely by chance, just as the expedition is trying to get the doors open. Look at him. I knew we should have worked harder to try and keep this expedition a secret. Look at him. He's got archaeologists written all over him. Oh, is it that obvious?
And the guy in charge being suspicious didn't last very long in this one.
Oh no. Again, that was more of an after. It was more kind of an afterthought. What even then, it was a bit of a stretch, wasn't it? You happened to arrive just as this tomb, which was obviously Boobatrap's, killed one of my men, so there must have been a connection. No. So Troughton overall, I do like him as the Doctor. He has a wonderful comedy edge to his performances, which I do think works. Too much and it would ruin the drama. Too little and it would be deadly serious and grim and grave and gritty and all things dark, which a lot of action, adventure and superheroes and so forth today are supposed to be. And Victoria, as I've already discussed, my opinion of her is coloured by the fact that I have seen all of her serials at least twice before now, so I do know how her character develops. And yes, she is one of my favourite female companions of all time. So I have previously discussed the fact that she instead of in contrast to the previous serial where she was simply the Snow White character, the Snow White princess, literally the damsel in distress. In this serial, she did actually make a positive contribution. She did actually save herself, the rocket ship captain, and the navigator first officer, or whoever, from a kaftan when she was holding a gun on them by screaming. Yes. The fact that she will be noted for her screaming, that she will be nicknamed Leather Lungs. That is one aspect which people love to drive home. But overall, it was a very good. It was an excellent performance by Troughton. It was a very good start as a companion for Vicky, for Deborah Watling. Not Vicky, Victoria again. Even Tom Baker made that mistake in the 1970s when Sarah Jane Smith wore one of Victoria's old dresses, which she found in the TARDIS. Oh, hello, Vicky. So let me off the hook on that one. But still, calling her Vic. Stop calling me Vic.
Yes, that Victorian hatred of nicknames and familiars.
Yeah.
But okay, so I think it's time for high point, low point. I think, my high point, I'm going to nab this before anyone else does, has to be the scene that's just the Doctor and Victoria talking. When I close my eyes, I can still see them. Yes, a scene that doesn't drive the plot forward and was improvised by the actors. It's just, it kind of is the cherry on the bakewell for me.
Oh yes, because it is showing the real character development. It's not simply that, oh, your father's dead and now you're travelling with us through space and time. Forget what father? No. The fact that her only surviving family was killed on Skaro by Daleks after she was kidnapped by Daleks is it's a real issue for her, and so yes, actually taking the time to explore that. With that, no more Moffrand, no. But yes, and your low point, Alex?
I think possibly, and Koki sort of touched upon this earlier, kind of. I think the Cyber Controller is maybe defeated a little bit too easily. I know it's not actually dead, but maybe it's one of those finales, one of those climaxes that maybe just felt a bit quick or something like that. I don't know.
Well, no, that's the problem. How else could a unarmed, admittedly strong, and how else could an unarmed black man whose sole purpose was to be to sacrifice himself to the for the sake of the white people, how could he have otherwise killed or totally killed a cybernetic super being?
Well, yes, and he had one cyber arm, didn't he? Didn't he?
One arm it wasn't cyber, but it wasn't completely replaced or converted, but he had cyber implants or something like that on his arm.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my high point and low point. And Koki, your high point and your low point.
This is Okay, low point, the femme fatale pretending to be knocked out and getting away with it. Seriously, she has one eye open, and yeah. High point, that's a good question. Oh, I liked watching Jamie shoot Cybermen, so yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, okay. Fun. And James, your high point and low point.
My low point is when Toberman, having broken or about to break the cyber control, is holding the dead body of Kaftan, and Troughton, as if demonstrating that, yes, this is a simple, dumb creature, as Max DeVille would describe Camel. His mind is undeveloped. He won't be able to understand things. You understand, don't you, Toberman? These are evil. Yes, evil. Must destroy. You just had to drive that home, didn't you? You just had to make it absolutely clear that it's not that he's simply the strong, silent type. Hey, he could be a PhD in English literature who just happens to work as a member of Kaftan's household for some personal motivations. But no, he has to be. You really have to drive home that he's the noble savage who can barely string two words together. The whole Hulk smash thing. And yes, he has to, again, as you suggested, Alex, he has to use his physical strength to defeat the Cybermen. He can't be black and strong and intelligent at the same time. But perhaps the writers were trying to do something there. The idea that the arrogant intelligence of Cleve got them into danger, so it's the physical strength of Toberman who gets them out of danger. But I think I've been giving the writers too much credit for that. And my high point, it's a toss-up between the moments when Victoria actually stands up for herself with lines like, who'd be a woman and don't call me Vic, and the line with which I opened this podcast. You could say it had a complete mental breakdown.
God, how many times have you said that in this podcast?
Yes, I know. I just love it. It's the look on Jamie's face. That's what sells it.
And the sound he makes, he actually goes, ooh, it's painful. Yes,
I know, and I just love it so much.
Anyway, right, well, if we could have everybody's final thought and goodbye, Kogi?
May the hamster prosperity rest upon your heads.
Okay, and James?
Very much like The Wheel in Space and Fury from the Deep, Evil of the Daleks and Tomb of the Cybermen, back to back, they're based on they share so much in common. Unlike Wheel in Space and Fury from the Deep, it's not basically the same story with different window dressing, but the principles, the whole sexism thing, the whole racism thing, there are themes running through both stories which we have discussed in detail. So in the end, if I put aside all of my Justice Warrior ranting, we can not forgive them, but tolerate these serials as products of their time. And the important difference between Tomb of the Cybermen and Evil of the Daleks is because Tomb of the Cybermen is so much shorter, it doesn't have to add so much superfluous rubbish written at the last minute with a biro on the back of a matchbook. The story is so much tighter, so much more logical. The evil of the Daleks, as I explained last week, still works beautifully. It's still a wonderful story. It's except for all of the rubbish that they had to tack on at the last minute. So, which is superior? Which is inferior? Which is the most sexist or the most racist? It's ultimately academic, because at the end of the day, they are just both great serials in themselves, and may the great holy donkey bless your house for 7 generations.
Aha! And thanks for joining us for another Doctor Who Fridays, and thanks to both of my guests. And next week we will be discussing The Abominable Snowmen.